So I am so excited today to be sitting down and chatting with my friend, Vanessa Van Edwards. Some of you might have actually seen Vanessa on her incredibly popular Creative Live workshop on the power of body language. Some of my Pioneer Nation folks might have, met her at that event, maybe attended her workshop, but even if you haven't met Vanessa, I knew that I needed to get her on a call because there's two things. Number one, she is an incredibly accomplished instructor of online video courses. She's got this Udemy library and people love her there. So that's reason number one. And the second reason is that she is like a master of nonverbal communication. So today I wanted to just sit down with Vanessa and talk about how those two things really fit together. This power of nonverbal and this online course stuff, and how can you use them to leverage off of each other. So Vanessa, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm so excited. I love talking about teaching and helping other instructors. So I'm so excited to be here.
Fantastic. So I've kind of given a bit of a backstory and description of who you are and what you do and all that kind of stuff. But for anyone out there who has no idea who you are, this is the first time they've been introduced. Why don't you just explain what you do, what you bring to the world?
Sure. So I teach the science of people. So any of the latest research that's coming out of universities, academic institutions, taking it and translating it into applicable, what I call bite-sized science. So I'm a total research geek, any research I can get my hands on, but then also making it applicable. I feel like we have to be able to translate all this amazing research into things that we can that are actionable and solution-oriented in our everyday life.
Very cool. And if people want to find you online?
So I'm at thescienceofpeople.com.
Perfect. So now you've got this amazing background in, the research and the science of people and how we communicate and how to get your point across and get people to trust you and all of that. But you've also got this incredible background in creating online courses, and not just any online courses that sell and make a difference for people. So talk to me about how those two things, how does that work?
Sure. So my foray into online teaching was an interesting journey, and I think that it only further proved why I need to be doing nonverbal communication, because I had written a lot of books. I'd written 4 different books on nonverbal communication, social intelligence, and they were great, but it's really hard to teach body language in a book.
Yeah.
Right. It's hard to teach in a book. I mean, forget what you're teaching. It's only one method of communication. And so I always knew that it was lacking. So I did a lot of live workshops, which are also great, but they also have limitations as well. That it's not scalable. It's very hard to follow up with people. If it's too fast, people can't rewatch it. If it's too slow, they can't speed up. And so when I started to think about online courses, it checked a lot of those boxes. It solved a lot of my problems. And so I put up my first course, The Secrets of Body Language, total experiment. I filmed it in my apartment, right on the side of my kitchen. I had no official anything. I mean, I dragged over my lamps. It was only like my lamps in my apartment. Put it up, and I was like, this is my favorite lecture. It was a 2.5-hour lecture that I do all the time. I said, let's see. It ended up selling. We have 6,000 students. That was last June. So in less than a year, it's just been selling like crazy. So that taught me, okay, if you have something really special to teach, if you know how to translate it into online video, you have a potent combination. You're able to reach many people, and you're able to reach them in the right way.
Talk to me a little bit more about what that right way means, because video is it's all the rage right now. It almost seems like if you're not doing video, you almost don't count in the online teaching and learning space. Mm-hmm. So both from your experience, but also from the research that you've read and studied, why is that? Why is it that video is so powerful as a teaching tool?
Okay, so I'm going to give my pitch for why every teacher needs to have nonverbal. So there was one study, and there's many I could pull from it. This is my favorite. And it was done by Professor Stephen Sessi. And what he did is he wanted to know if he did the exact same class. So he had the same slides, same script, same everything. But in one class, he changed his nonverbal behavior, if there would be differences in his student evaluations at the end of the semester. So in one class, he changed his vocal variation. So that's a nonverbal technique to make it, to have greater vocal variety. He showed hand gestures, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, I think, in this call. And he did nonverbal expressiveness. Okay, so he changed those three things.
Can you tell me what nonverbal expressiveness is, just for people who might not be familiar with that?
It's using your body in addition to your points. So it's like saying, we're going to talk about two different things. First this, then this. That's nonverbal expressiveness, right? Two things, this, and then this. As opposed to saying we're going to talk about two things, first this, and then this.
Perfect, thanks.
Sorry, always correct me if I say something that's a little weird, because nonverbal behavior, I have my own lexicon. So he did this in his same class, same slides. He even filmed it so he could check the scripts to make sure that the words were the same. At the end of the semester, his hypothesis was that in the nonverbal class, he would get higher ratings in his teaching ability, but he didn't think it would change anything else. What happened is his ratings were higher in every single area. So not only did the nonverbal class rank higher for his teaching ability, it rated higher for the content, it rated higher for his organization. So the organization of the class was rated higher, and this one blows my mind. He had higher ratings in textbook quality. So his nonverbal even increased the nonverbal or the textbook quality of the course. Obviously, the textbook was exactly the same.
That's amazing because, yeah, I mean, we think that, you know, the reason that courses are becoming so popular right now is they seem to be the natural evolution from ebooks, right? For a long time online, it was all about the ebook, and it was all about, you know, your guides or whatever you wanted to call them, but it was the ebook. And then, you know, people started doing video and they started turning it into courses and saying maybe there's something there. And, you know, with the video and the worksheets and the whole thing. And it's amazing to me, that last point that you just made about, you know, the textbook being perceived better, because one of the questions I often get is, I've got this ebook and, you know, it's perceived not bad. What can I do to sell it more? Mm-hmm. And the easy answer is to say, well, okay, turn it into a course. And from my experience, I would have said turn it into a course, because I would have said, well, people will get more out of it and, you know, they'll actually apply it and you can charge more and, you know, all of these good things. But the fact that just putting some video where you can have some nonverbal to accompany it can even raise the specter of, like, your ebook that you haven't changed, that's right. Amazing.
Right. And so what people have to realize is exactly what you just said, that nonverbal has this sort of halo effect. If you have good nonverbal, and it can be in a 2-minute video, right? You could have a 30-page ebook and have a 2-minute intro video or a thank you video that can elevate. It has a halo effect on your organization, on your teaching ability, on your credibility, and on whatever other materials or content you have. Your website, your blog posts. Like I have found, I do a lot of experiments. Now, Science of People is technically a human behavior research lab. So my company, we test. We take studies, we put them in the lab, we test them in real life, and then we put out content on them. In that testing in real life, I will test on a post written exactly the same way, that if I add a 1-minute video to that post, I get triple the amount of likes, triple the amount of shares. People think that the content is better. People think that the tips are better. Nothing is different, but just adding that in. It's like, I think what happens is, from the science side, is that you're literally activating more of people's dopamine centers. Mm-hmm. So in our brain, the reward network, the reward neurotransmitter is dopamine. And when you have a video, it just activates their reward centers more. And so they're more heightened. It's like the whole thing becomes a pleasurable experience. So I'm hoping that after you watch this, you will try to activate more of your readers and your students' pleasure centers in the brain.
Very cool. So, well, let's talk about how someone can do that. So maybe they're like you, making that first video. They're going to go and get all the lights from around their house or their apartment, and we were talking before the call about how I went and found the most blank wall I could find in my office. So it would be distracting, and so we could focus on, our nonverbal that we're sharing here. So, someone's going to do this after they watch this video and say, I'm going to do a 2-minute introduction to my ebook, and I want to package it up with some video. What are some tips that you would give them to boost their nonverbal, to really be able to take advantage of that?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to start with, I have 3 tips that are really easy. Like you can apply them right after you shut this video off. So the first one is to show your hands. So when we look at someone for the first time, most people guess that we look at someone's eyes. Actually, the first place we look is someone's hands. And the reason for this is because back in our caveman days, when someone was approaching us, we wanted to look at their hands to make sure that they weren't carrying a weapon. So our brains still do this as a survival mechanism. And what they found is if someone can't see your hands, their brain cannot relax enough to hear what you're saying. So a rookie mistake that I see people make, they don't even realize they're making it, is they have like the talking head videos. So they put their head closer, they're talking like this, but you can barely see their hands or just like the top of their fingers. So I'm checking the screen up top. So they don't show their hands. So what I'm going to say is when you're talking, when you're filming your video, push your computer back to make sure that you can see hands when you're gesturing very easily. When I can, I try to sit even further back, but I wanted the sound to be okay. Usually I film my videos from back here. This is usually where I film my videos, but the sound isn't quite as good. So I promised I'd come a little closer. So that's a really, really easy thing that you can do is make sure that your hands are visible as you're talking. That increases your trust. So your audience will be able to trust what you're saying more, and their brain will be able to relax so they can take in more of your content. Yes.
All right. So I like that relaxing. You know, I hadn't thought of that because, yeah, if you're freaked out about, I don't know if I can trust this, it's really hard to actually pay attention to the material if, you know, part of your subconscious is off doing its own thing.
Right. And so just the science to back that up is there was a study that was done that looked at juries. And they found that when the defendant put their hands under the table, like the desk, the juries rated the defendant as more sneaky and mistrustful. So just having your hands hidden, people's, as you said, subconscious, their red flags are going, something's not right. I can't trust them. I can't listen to them. So it's a really easy way to instantly make sure that your content is being heard and trusted.
And not only for in the course, but I'm thinking of all those awful sales videos that I've seen on sales pages. Those are almost the worst for those talking head. And if there's ever a point in time that is most important to be getting trust, it's on a sales page when you're asking people, give me your money. So, I mean, for me, the takeaway here is, especially when you're trying to, you know, in your first lessons or on that sales page, when you're just trying to make that initial connection, yeah, hands need to totally be visible. So I think that's fantastic. So you had said you had 3. What's number 2?
Okay, so tip number 2 is about power posing. So research was done at Harvard Business School, and this looked at that not only does our body language affect other people's opinion of us, but it also affects our own opinion of ourselves. So that's a little weird. This is a very radical way of thinking about body language, but basically what it means is that when we are in powerful body language, and powerful body language means taking up space, so having your shoulders down and back, keeping your head up, using your arm rests or using expansive hand gestures. If you're standing, having your feet firmly planted on the floor. Taking up space makes us feel more like a leader, and it actually changes our hormone levels. So they found in this study that doing that, being in a powerful position, makes our testosterone increase for both men and women. And that's a very good thing. Leaders, natural born leaders, have higher levels of testosterone. So before you turn on your video, I know it's nerve-wracking. I know it's taken me a long time to be even kind of comfortable on video. I want you to think about taking up space. Get that testosterone flowing so that you feel more confident. That will come across in your words. So put your shoulders down and back. Use your armrest, take up space, keep your head up. And when I sit and do video, by the way, both of my feet are firmly planted on the ground. That will make you feel more confident in your material, and it also makes you look more confident. So look at the difference, right? If I'm teaching like this, as I've been talking, I see a lot of people will roll in their shoulders, they'll bring their head and neck down, and they'll do this, right? Would you trust someone like this, or would you rather trust someone who's sitting like this? Just that slight difference, it helps them trust you, and it also helps you trust yourself. So power posing is something I want you to start thinking about.
So one thing that I've seen people do is they record themselves with their webcam or whatever, but they also have slides that they're trying to present to because they want to be able to do like a picture-in-picture or whatever. So do you have some tips on for how you can keep your power posing and your open, strong body positioning while you're still trying to, be navigating your slides and that kind of stuff? How do you make that work exactly?
Sure, and I do this in my course as well. So I have about maybe 75% of my course is video and maybe 25% is slides and me talking over those slides. So what I do when I have slides is I stand and deliver them. So when I have slides, I turn on my iMovie or whatever you're working on. I put on my headset and I actually stand at a standing desk or at a high counter and I deliver them as I'm standing, because that's actually how I teach in person. You know, most people teach standing. And so that comes through in your voice. It also gets your testosterone flowing. Like if I could be standing right now, I would be, but it would be a little bit weird in our video call. So that actually slides is a great way to be able to power pose while you're talking because no one can see you. And then you can really power pose and you can like really expand and take up space. So that's how you do it. It's actually a really easy way to get power posing in naturally.
And I guess the same thing would work if you're like working on a whiteboard or something, where you can be taking up the space physically with the whiteboard there. How about, you're writing on the whiteboard, but you want to be facing the camera. Any tricks for how you should position yourself in that regard?
Yeah, so as long as your torso turns back to the camera on a regular basis, it's okay. So, for example, you want to position, let's say like the whiteboard is right here and the camera is here. This is great, right? Because you can still see my torso. I try not to do this, right? So if you can move it so that your torso is able to easily turn back where you're talking, writing, talking, writing. Don't worry about having to talk while you face backwards. You actually don't have to. It's okay to give them a break and just write. So that's a way. Just make sure that your torso is back. Yeah.
Perfect. Love that. Okay, and how about that third tip?
All right, third tip. So this is actually my favorite. It's a little bit intermediate. So it's you have to think about it a little more, but I think it's totally worth it. It's nonverbal expressiveness. So this is explaining your verbal words with nonverbal gestures. So studies have found that when you pair your verbal content with nonverbal expressiveness, people understand your message better. So if you just notice what I just did is I said verbal content, nonverbal content, and they understand them much better. So that's actually a nonverbal explanation of what I just said. It's because their brain, it's like they're getting two ways of explaining something instead of one. Mm-hmm. So I want you to think about your content, especially if you're doing an intro video or a sales video or a little about or promo video. It works really well in like 1 to 2 minute videos. Think about your pitch. So maybe you have a script or you have bullets. What can you add in non-verbally to help explain your concept? So here's a couple of examples. And I have a bunch on my website as well. Taking two things and combining them into one. So we have this, and we're going to put them together. Or I'm going to take your customers from where they are to really high, right? So you can actually show that with your hand. You can also show movement. So I know that you're feeling really stressed and overwhelmed with your weight loss goals. What we're going to do is I'm going to make you feel calm, collected, and in control, right? So you can actually take them from somewhere else and have it be a little higher. So I want you to start thinking about what nonverbal explanations you can add. Another really easy one is 1, 2, 3, right? If you have a list, show them the list. It's actually much more, people see you as more organized when you do that with your hands because it's pre-thought out, right? So instead of saying, some of the benefits of my course are I'm going to teach you how to be organized. I'm going to teach you how to get your time management in control. And I'm going to teach you how to be stress-free. That sounds okay, but it's even better when you can go, some of the benefits of my course are I'm going to teach you how to get organized. I'm going to teach you how to be in control of your time. And I'm going to teach you how to be stress-free, right? I didn't change my verbal content, but the 1, 2, 3, someone goes, whew, I understand them. Like they got me covered. So I want you to start thinking about how you can do that. Even if you can just add 1 or 2 in for a 1 or 2 minute video, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was going to ask how much is too much, but it sounds like less is more so long as you do a little bit.
Yeah, so okay, this is important. So I have a couple of students who I've worked with and they are fantastic and they are not, I call it nonverbal scripting. So they look at their script and they add in a nonverbal script below their written script. The problem is it's a spectrum, right? So you don't want to have no nonverbal explanation because then you're just like this the whole video and you're not moving at all. But you also don't want to be on the other end of the spectrum, which is jazz hands, which is first I'm going to take you and then we're going to go here and then we're going to list out our things. And right, you don't want to be like you're doing an interpretive dance performance. So there's a sweet spot. My rule of thumb is typically 1 to 2 purposeful nonverbal gestures every 30 seconds. right? So if you have a 1 minute video, 2 to 3 is great. That's sort of that's as much as the brain likes, but again, it's what you're comfortable with.
The other thing that I really liked about that third point was it reminded me of some of the things that we talk about on my site in terms of making a promise to people and really being clear about what you're promising. So the idea of, we're going to take you from here to here, that learner's journey before and after, and being able to say you're going to learn how to do these three things, listing them off. What I find works especially well when you list things off, be it through a nonverbal, 1, 2, 3, or in your copy or whatever that looks like, is it gives people the opportunity to reflect back and say, hey, I actually can do those three things. So when you break them down and you list them as 1, 2, 3, that reminds people, kind of puts it in their brains of, okay, when I'm done, I want to be able to check those three boxes for myself.
Right. You're setting out their goals for them.
Exactly.
Like this, that's a learner's journey. That's a goal from going from here to here. This is benefits. Those are your 3 goals. Totally. They're very, very aligned.
That's fantastic. So I love this. This is so cool because it's not just about being in the course, it's about how you can sell more of your product. It's even just about how you go out and deal with people when you meet with them every day. I mean, these tips, we talked about it in the context of teaching, but those same 3 lessons can easily apply no matter where you're going in your day-to-day life. I think it's fantastic.
And when you're teaching live as well, live, same 3 tips. Taking up space when you're on stage, not hiding behind a podium. Keep your hands visible. Don't put them in your pockets. It's the same. So whenever I teach for live teaching or online teaching, same.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to go through all of that with us and giving us really practical and actionable stuff that, yeah, people can go, they can close this video, they can grab all their lights from around their house, sit down and start actually thinking about how they're going to present themselves to their audiences using, hopefully more comfortably, the video medium. So thank you so much for being here. Remind us one more time, if people want to get in touch with you, how and where do they do that?
Yes, scienceofpeople.com. I post tons of free tips, and I also have a free influence course coming up on 7 ways to increase your influence, and that's totally free. And Brianne, I just want to thank you so much for hosting me and doing the work you do with instructors, because it is hard work to get yourself out there and to put your message in a way that people get, and so I so appreciate what you do as well.
Well, thank you, and thank you everyone for joining us.